I don't want to crush your dreams, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you're not going to be able to buy real estate without any money. And so in this video, I share with you how we bought the last 24 doors in 2022 using zero of our own money. But the reason why you're not gonna be able to is because we started this journey in 2015 and you probably haven't started yet. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you my process, my system of how we got to the point in our career, how we can actually buy real estate without using any of our own money, and how you can actually shortcut that process, but it is still a process. So if you like this video, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. So yesterday we closed on our first big multifamily unit, and for us right now in this moment is a 7-plex. Up to this point, the biggest we've ever closed on is a 4-plex. It was pretty cool, it was a cool experience, and what's even cooler though is we bought it with none of our own money. And in fact, in 2022, we bought 24 doors without using any of our own money. And I think that's like the big myth in real estate is like, how do I buy real estate with no money? You can do it, use OPM, everybody does it. And the reality is like, it's not the truth. And how we've been able to do that this year has been really hinged on what we've done previously. And so, like I said, we have now like a $10 million portfolio, and it took us up until this year, the last like $4 million that we bought, we've now been able to not use our own money. And so I think there's a big myth in the real estate community that, hey, it's easy, just use other people's money. Like there's lots of no money down deals. You can do creative finance, all those other things, but that's just not the real truth. So let me kind of share with you kind of my journey of how I got started. And it actually all started like in 2015 when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so that book, it changed the way I thought about money and investing and what I needed to do with my time. And, you know, one of the core principles of that book is like the rich don't work for money. So at that time I had a business and I was doing all the freaking work. I was a personal trainer by the day, and then I was doing the books by night, and I was doing the marketing on the weekends, and I was trying to do sales in between appointments, and I was like running myself into the ground. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not passive. This is not me not working for money. And so I started looking at real estate. And I was like, oh my gosh, real estate, it seems so passive. It seems like what Rich Dad Poor Dad is talking about. And so then I started learning about real estate investing, and I got on this website called Bigger Pockets. It's like a big website. It's a real estate community. It's free, and they have podcasts. And so I would go on my walks every single day. I would just listen to podcasts. And the cool thing about that type of podcast was that they would interview other real estate investors or real estate professionals. And I got to hear different perspectives, different ideas, different strategies. And the thing that kept coming up was this idea of like, we don't use our own money, and that's how we're able to scale. And I was like, okay, this is like pretty cool, but I don't know if I could do that. And so about a year later, I saw an ad on Facebook for Rich Dad Poor Dad. His company was coming to Bozeman. And so we signed up for, there was like a free 2-hour seminar that we signed up for. And after that 2-hour seminar, they pitched us on a $500 weekend seminar, and my wife bought it because it was like a 2-for-1 deal. Like, okay, this is really cool. And so we went to that weekend seminar, and we actually learned a ton. They did a great job of giving us lots of information. And at the end, of course, it was like a big sales pitch for like a $25,000 program. And we elected not to go through with it. But what I realized at that moment was like, shit, I actually need to get some money. And so put aside the idea of real estate investing at the time, that was 2016. I was like, I need to actually make some money in my business, because like you can do no money on real estate. It's just a lot of freaking work. And that wasn't my goal. My goal was actually to, you know, use the money I made, my active income, and turn that into passive income. So I put the idea of real estate to the side, and then I went back to my business and started focusing on actually how to generate income. And you know my story, I was able to connect with a gym mentor, and I literally went from doing about $50,000 the previous year to doing $360,000 in about 8 months of working with him. So it was a huge dramatic shift, and I learned how to actually make some freaking money. And then I found myself in a situation in 2019 to actually buy my very first investment property, and we did it the traditional way. Like we just put 25% down, which on that property was like $66,000, and we got traditional financing, and we did it, you know, what is called the traditional way. We did that a bunch of times. And so up until this year, up until 2022, like we have actually invested over $1 million of our own money into real estate. And so the reason I tell you that is because I think it's super important. Let me back up a little bit here to 2020. So in 2020, after we had bought a couple properties, I started to realize that like I couldn't continue this forever using my own money because I wasn't making enough money for as much as I wanted to buy real estate. And so that's where this idea of using other people's money and getting into no money down real estate became more intriguing, more interesting to me. And that's where I connected with a real estate mentor named Kris Krohn. And so what Kris does does is he partners with people all over the nation, and what they do is they put up the money and they get the financing, and he's one who goes and finds the deals. They basically connect on 50-50 partnership, and he's able to buy real estate almost every single day of the year. And I was like, wow, like that's a really cool model. And so they initially pitched us on being the money and the credit. And we started to realize like, well, hey, that's not really what we want to do, but I want to learn what you're doing. And so up investing over 6 figures, a program to work with him. And it came with more than just learning his real estate system, but that's one of the things that we did learn is like how actually he did it. What are his systems? What are his processes? What are the behind the scenes of how Kris is able to buy a house almost every single day without using his own money, without using his own credit? And we're like, wow, this is insane. Like we don't want to partner with Kris. We want to learn what he's doing. And so we spent that 6 figures to do it. In 2021, again, we continued just to buy real estate. We started using like half of our own money. We started using some partners. And then fast forward to now, like in 2022, we haven't used our own money this year. And it's because we learned these systems and processes. So there's a couple things that I want to share with you about buying real estate with no money down. The first thing is that the only way people are going to give you money is if you have a track record, is if you have experience. You have experience being able to return someone's capital first and foremost, and then secondly, be able to give someone a return on their capital. These are like one of the 2 most important things that you have to understand. Like these are the 2 questions that are the unsaid questions in every person who's got money's mind is like, am I going to get my money back? Is there a clear path for this? And then the second question is, well, how much am I going to make on my money? But it all starts with the track record. And so one of the things that Kris shared with us is that when you do something one time, everyone thinks you got lucky. Like when you do something once, anybody can do something once. If you do something twice, you got lucky. But it's the 3rd time, that's when you have a track record. That's when you can actually go back and say, hey, I've done this 3 times. So that was always his goal. It was like, hey, like do 3 of these deals. And once you have 3 deals, then you can go look for investors. Then you can start taking this to other people and say, hey, here's what I have. When I find the next deal, would you like to invest with? Would you like to be part of some of these returns on these type of deals that I'm getting right now? And again, part of that mentorship, we learned the questions to ask. We learned the spreadsheets and the graphs and what are the actual ROIs that people generally care about. There's so many numbers that you can track. There's so much data in business and real estate and money and wealth. Like what are the things that are actually important? And so this is what we were able to fast track that process and just say, hey, like this guy's done it before. He's doing it at scale. And we literally just bought his information, some that he's spent a decade to perfect, and we're able to shortcut that process with giving him our credit card. And so when you're sitting across the table from an investor, you gotta know the questions to ask them. Like, what is their goal with the capital? One of the worst things you can do as someone who is looking for other people's money is like only be concerned about your own needs, your own goals. This is like the worst thing. And like this just goes in sales in general. Like I can tell someone's motivation by the questions they ask, and I can tell by the questions they don't ask. That's actually the key. And so if you are sitting in a situation where number 1, you have a track record, and then number 2, you're sitting with a potential investor across the table for you or on the phone with you, like be interested in their goals. Be interested in to see like what do they want to do with their money. And when you get really interested and curious about them, then all of a sudden you start to see the thing that you have, the product, the solution, the property, if it is actually a good fit or not. Here's the reality is that the majority of the people that I talk to when it comes to investing in real estate are not actually good fits for what I'm trying to do. And so a lot of people I just push away, or I tell them, hey, like go do this, or you'd be better served if you actually went over to this person, or you go learn more information, or you just don't have enough freaking money. And so ultimately, when you get invested in what someone else's goals are and trying to serve them at the highest level, then you start to figure out how to adjust and how to change and how to make your product match their goals. And so at the end of the day, like if your deal doesn't match your investor's needs, then don't do the deal with that investor. That's why you need to have multiple investors. It's not just one person, but it's multiple people. And what do people care about? Like some people care about wealth building, right? Like they are making money in their job or they're making money in their business and they don't want anything to do with real estate from a active standpoint, but they have this money that's just sitting in the bank and it's getting eaten up by inflation. Or if they don't actually use that money, then they know they're just going to spend it or their wife's going to spend it, right? So they want to park it. And so that type of investor is different than the person who's sitting on maybe a $50,000 or $100,000 and they don't have an amazing income. Like that's their seed money. They're trying to grow that into their retirement. And so that person maybe is going to want to be more flexible. They're going to want to grow that maybe more aggressively. And so your deal needs to match up with what your investor's goals are. And so with all that being said, when you understand this concept, this is how you actually get into real estate with no money down. So number 1, you gotta have a track record. And number 2, you got to start actually talking to investors, people who actually have money. Now, once you have these 2 things, understand there's actually 4 pieces of a deal. We have this person who finds a deal, we have the credit, we have the money with the management. Now, if you have the money, right, it doesn't necessarily have to be your money. So now you find an investor and you say, hey, I have $100,000 I'm willing to deploy. I trust you. I see that I see your track record over here. I will do a deal with you. So the next thing you gotta do is you gotta go find a deal. So are you the one who's finding the deal? Are you out there knocking on doors? Are you making cold calls? Are you doing texts? Are you reaching out to realtors? Like, are you the one who's actually finding the deal? If not, then you need to go partner with a wholesaler or a real estate agent, right? And when I say partner, you can actually have them be equity partners. You can just pay them their assignment fees or their agent fees, whatever it may be, but you need to make sure that you actually have the good deals coming in. The second piece is credit. So again, like I've actually done deals where I'm just a credit partner. Like someone just wants me to come in and because I have good credit and I have experience, I can just get the loan on the property. Again, do you have access to that, or do you need to go find somebody who has the credit? Do you need to find someone who can actually qualify for loans? Or secondly, I'm part of a creative finance group, and if you're able to negotiate owner financing and subject to, that basically takes care of the credit piece of the equation. But either way, you need to understand that you either got to negotiate credit or you have to be able to qualify for credit. Third thing we talked about is money. And the fourth thing is management, like who's going to manage the deal. So because we have experience, we have a track record, people actually will bring us into a deal just to manage the deal as well. And so when you understand those are the four pieces of the deal, it's not just having money that can get you into a deal, but let's say that you actually are a good deal finder, or maybe you just have credit. Like if you just have the credit, you can get yourself into a deal. If you're a high net worth individual because you're an amazing business and you have a great credit score, you can actually be a sponsor for somebody. You can get, 10, 15, 20% equity just by sponsoring the credit and qualifying for the loan. And so these are other ways that you can get into real estate with no money down. Hey, if you like that video, I want to remind you again, squeeze that like button, subscribe to the channel. And if you like that video, well then, hey, go check out this video right here and you can go to everythinggoesmyway.com and you can get the free gift. So watch the next video.